Clare and welcome to ITV News. It's Freedom Day in Jersey and we're out on the town.
Yes, I'm live at St Heliers Weybridge as almost all COVID restrictions in Jersey are relaxed. Masks are out, nightclubs can reopen and big events are back on. We've been out getting reaction to those changes.
It felt like today would never come, but I'm absolutely delighted and I'm really excited to see more people coming to St Heliers.
I've been looking back at Jersey's road out of lockdown.
And what's the latest in Guernsey? Louisa will be here to explain.
Jersey's clubs might be empty for now, but not for long. I'll be reporting from the dance floor.
And it's not all about COVID as Guernsey's Battle of Flowers gets underway. Good evening. It's the day many of us have been waiting for, Jersey's so-called Freedom Day. Almost all restrictions have now been relaxed in a significant step back towards normality. We have, of course, had a couple of false starts to get to this point, but seemingly it's third time lucky. And while lots of people will be celebrating today, there will be others who are rightly concerned that we're not out of the woods yet. And we've got reporters across both bailiwicks ready to give us reaction to the latest big COVID change in the Channel Islands. First, let's cross to Clare Burton, who's live at the Weybridge in Jersey for us. And Clare, it's going to no doubt see many revellers out tonight.
Yeah, this is a really popular spot to come for drinks, dinner and now dancing, after dance floors were of course off limits for the last 17 months. And as expected, there are quite a lot of people here enjoying that first taste of freedom, which is brilliant news for the businesses around here who've been limited in what they could do for the last year and a half. It's all because today Jersey moves to stage 7 of its reconnection plan. What that means in practice is that you now don't have to wear a mask unless on public transport or travelling through the ports. People are now encouraged to return to the office or workplace instead of working from home. Large-scale events can go ahead, nightclubs can reopen and you can have a drink at the bar, not just sat down. Ian McBride has been out and about gauging reaction to those changes.
Events organisers have been some of those worst hit by the restrictions. But after more than a year with virtually no income, Freedom Day for the organisers of next month's Electric Park Music Festival couldn't come soon enough.
We're getting really good response. It's really picking up. Tickets are going really well. You can see the hive of activity just on the sales and the general buzz about everyone.
Good morning, a Club Town Spa. How can I help?
The lifting of many of the restrictions means big changes for businesses across the island.
I think when you're working all day in a job that's moving around, hot, warm, wearing a mask has been really tough for the whole team. So I think that's a real relief for a lot of people. I think that's a big change. And then from a business point of view, being able to have people standing up and having a drink at a bar is massive. Just people feeling that little bit more relaxed now they don't have to wear a mask inside makes a big difference to people's perception and wanting to go out.
And the nighttime economy will be further boosted by the reopening of clubs.
People who turned 18 have never been to a nightclub. I'm sure they're all looking forward to coming to see us. Yeah, I think we're confident. I think being able to stand at a bar, being able to meet your friends, even not wearing face masks for us is a big thing. You'll be able to see people's faces, hopefully smiling. And it's hoped it will be equally positive for town centre shops.
It felt like today would never come, but I'm absolutely delighted and I'm really excited to see more people coming to St Heliers. I understand that people may still be a little bit cautious, but retailers and hospitality venues, they are all doing their bit and they're really excited to see you.
But is it safe to lift the restrictions?
What we're seeing at the moment are generally people, if they do get infected with the virus, they have much milder symptoms, and it does feel like the right time to give people the chance to have more freedom in their lives. And in addition to that, we'll be monitoring this very closely.
And people are widely supportive of the decision.
I think people are going to still have to be very sensible about it. I've got my mask in my pocket, so when I go indoors I still put it on.
People will still be a bit nervous, but I think all in all it's probably about the right time.
I think there's got to be a point where we have to get back to normal. Do you know what I mean? And I think as long as people are careful, I don't see a problem with it.
Great. My glasses won't mist up anymore.
But will scenes like this be banished to history, or is this just a temporary respite?
Well, Ian's with me now, and Ian, the lifting of restrictions and mask wearing and things, that's been happening in the UK for a few weeks. What's actually happening on the ground there, from what you understand?
Well, I think despite what the government's saying about wanting to get everybody out and living normal lives, caution is very much the watchword. If you look at their own figures from the Office of National Statistics, they're saying 90% of people are still wearing face masks at some point as part of their daily lives. And the mass return to offices, that simply isn't happening. A lot of businesses are saying basically some staff can come back 1 day a week in September, possibly 2 days in October. A lot are telling their staff don't come back till January, till the picture actually unfolds. And if you look at the mass events, in some ways it's even more worrying. The Euro finals at Wembley earlier this year, that's been linked to 6,000 COVID cases. The Latitude Pop Festival in Suffolk, 1,000 cases. And the recent Boardwalk Surfers Festival in Newquay in Cornwall, they're linking that to 5,000 cases. So a lot of uncertainty and a lot of caution.
Indeed. Back to the lifting of restrictions in Jersey, though, obviously designed to boost certain parts of the economy. If we look at tourism, we know that vaccinated tourists have been allowed in for a couple of months now. So that part of the economy already arguably doing well.
Well, yes. I mean, if you look at the figures, they're back to something like 65% of pre-pandemic level, around 30,000 visitors through the airport this week. But mixed messages from business. You look at the airlines, BA vote of confidence. They're saying we're going to carry on flights from Heathrow through the winter. Jet2 are extending their summer season. But Logan Air today announcing they're pulling out because of what they call disappointing results. Fantastic that people are back, but you talk to anybody in the hospitality sector and they're saying it's great to have people back, but we actually haven't got enough staff to service the tourists. I went to a restaurant last night, it took 2 hours to get the food. Not their fault, they just simply haven't got the staff. You look in the windows of shops, bars, pubs, they're all desperate. You can see the signs wanting staff. So I think it's mixed messages, and a lot of people in the UK seem to be saying we're actually wanting to come here because we feel safer.
Indeed, so still quite a lot of uncertainty, but still a day to celebrate. Ian, thank you so much. We know that Jersey's journey out of lockdown has had lots of twists and turns. Jess has this reminder of how we got here today.
Thanks, Claire. Well, yes, since Jersey went into lockdown at Christmas, the road to normality has been a long one. So let's remind you of the journey so far. Now, the lifting of restrictions began back in January, the 11th, in fact, when schools reopened. Shops then followed suit in early February, and then hairdressers and beauty salons the week after that. Under 18s could start playing outdoor sport again mid-February, and faith groups could gather in small numbers. And then islanders could go out for a meal and have staycations when the restaurants and hotels open towards the end of February. Then in March, adults could start playing team sports again. People were allowed to go into each other's houses in small groups just in time for Mother's Day. And then the next day, a huge swathe of restrictions were lifted. So gyms and swimming pools reopened, children could enjoy soft play areas, and singing and playing instruments in small groups could resume again. Now, come April, big one for lots of people, pubs could start serving drinks again, but only to tables under 10 people and with a strict curfew of 11:30. More restrictions were lifted on April the 12th. Theatres could reopen, sport welcomed back spectators, weddings and wakes had no limits on guest numbers, and household gatherings could have up to 20 people. And a key one, it was no longer law to have to social distance. Now, at the end of April, Jersey opened up the border to UK travellers using the traffic light system, meaning different isolation and testing requirements depending on the region. By May, saunas and jacuzzis could reopen, and private wedding receptions were allowed for up to 50 people. At the end of May, of course, Jersey opened the border for international travel and relaxed quarantine for fully vaccinated passengers from the UK with the so-called vaccine passport scheme. Now, the 14th of June was meant to be Jersey's so-called Freedom Day, but that was delayed due to rising case numbers. So instead, masks were scrapped except for public transport and in the ports, and there were no longer limits on guests at private weddings. Now, in July, the traffic light system was ditched and replaced with a scheme based on vaccination status. And while Freedom Day was meant to happen last month, it was delayed to the 26th of August, the day today when you can do all of these things. But if we've learnt anything over the last year and a half, it's that there's no certainty where COVID is concerned, and restrictions could return at any time.
So that's Jersey's path out of lockdown. But what about Guernsey, and what do they think about what's happening in their sister island? We know Guernsey has been without most internal restrictions for some time now, apart, of course, from limitations still at the border. Louisa Britton is in St Sampson's for us this evening. And Louisa, it hasn't exactly been plain sailing for Guernsey either, has it?
No, it certainly hasn't. But since the end of the second lockdown, which was at the start of the year here in Guernsey, there have been no internal restrictions. And that's something that the bailiwick has prided itself on and has differentiated it from most parts of the world. The lack of internal restrictions, though, have come at a cost. As you mentioned, there are strict border controls enforced for much of the year. Those have slowly been easing over the last few months. But with that, a steady uptick in the number of cases we've been seeing recently in Guernsey, and that has led to some anxiety and even concern from some parts of the island that could squander the COVID-free lifestyle that many people have been enjoying over the last few months.
Well, you mentioned the border restrictions there, Louisa. We know inter-island travel just got a bit of a boost recently. What impact has that had in Guernsey?
Yes, that's right. From Monday this week, people arriving from Jersey didn't need to get a pre-travel test, and that had been in place for quite some time. The state's announcing that on Monday. So that means that double vaccinated passengers arriving from Jersey will be treated in the same way as those double jabbed from the common travel area. The message from public health here is very much that we're having to continue to live with COVID, and that there is the testing capacity to increase testing if there is a surge in cases and cluster of cases within the island, and of course the regime of testing which is being put in place for schools when they return in the coming days. As the states have, though, not ruled out further restrictions being potentially brought in the autumn if there is a surge in cases, and not necessarily ruling out masks being worn either if that does happen in the coming months. So very much a situation under review.
Indeed, we'll keep an eye on it. Louisa, thank you.
So let's have a look at where we're at with coronavirus cases across the islands. In Guernsey, 19 new cases have been identified. 6 people have recovered. So there are 115 active cases at the moment. 2 people are in hospital who've tested positive for COVID-19, but they were not admitted for the illness. And in Jersey, sadly, there has been another death. There have been 21 new cases. 47 people have recovered. So there are now 312 active cases. 9 people are in hospital. Well, for the politicians in charge of handling the pandemic, it has been impossible to please everyone all of the time. It's been a difficult job trying to balance the protection of lives with the protection of livelihoods. And during the past year and a half, Jersey's government has faced criticism from both sides. Well, earlier I caught up with the man in charge of the economy, Senator Lyndon Farnham, and I began by asking him what he would say to islanders worried about the risks of lifting restrictions.
The majority of islanders should be pleased that we're moving forward. Of course, we mustn't forget those who remain vulnerable in society, which is why we have also published some guidelines to accompany today's freedoms. Fortunately, the third wave of infection, and not just in Jersey but in other countries, because of the success of the vaccination programme, thankfully not materialised into high levels of hospitalisations.
What will it take for you to close businesses again and to go into lockdown?
It's hard to say at this stage. I very much hope we can see a period of stability. I think it's perhaps important that we shift the focus from the number of positive cases to our clinical capacity and making sure we can treat and care for islanders who become unwell because of COVID, just as we do with any other medical condition.
Looking back over the past year and a half, do you have any regrets about any decisions made by your government?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we could have locked down a week earlier at the beginning of the pandemic, because at that stage we found ourselves, the community and businesses were starting to close prior to the official lockdown. I think science and medical science has learnt a lot about the virus moving forward and the effectiveness of masks. So perhaps we could have actually looked at the use of masks a bit more carefully and maybe use masks more effectively. But like I say, that's with the benefit of hindsight.
And I know, having worked alongside you a long time now, that there are very much different characters in the Council of Ministers. Have you always honestly been on board with the decisions made by your colleagues?
Oh, we've had very robust discussions and debates around the ministerial table, but we've always reached a democratic consensus. No, those decisions have not always been unanimous, but we have always reached a majority, and we've always worked together once those decisions have been made to make sure the decisions are implemented and are as effective as possible.
And finally, on a positive note, are you going to be hitting the dance floor anytime soon?
Well, I think the mind is still willing, but I sort of retired from the nightclub scene quite a few years ago, but I am looking forward to listening to some live music again sometime very soon.
Great, aren't we all? Economic Development Minister Lyndon Farnham, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Jess.
Well, ministers have missed live music too. The good news for them, and us of course, is that concerts, festivals and nightclubs are all allowed again now, largely because social distancing rules have been relaxed. So Senator Farnham can really throw himself into that mosh pit next time if the feeling takes him. We sent our reporter Caroline Lewis to a nightclub earlier before all the eager dancers got there to gauge reaction in the industry.
Well, I'm a little lonely on the dance floor at the moment, but not for long. Give it a few hours and this place is expected to be heaving with revellers ready to have a good time. And boy, has it been a long time coming. Clubs were closed in March 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, and the dance floor has been devoid of people ever since. But while it'll be smiles all round, I'm sure, tonight, it's been a tough 18 months for those in the industry. Well, joining me now is club manager Johnny. Johnny, big night ahead. How are you feeling?
Feeling great, ready to go. Been waiting on this day coming for 18 months now, and I'm really excited about opening again.
What have you guys been doing to prepare for tonight?
Well, we've had a long time to prepare, so everything is in order, and it's just a case of making sure everybody's happy when they come in, and we're all fully staffed, ready to go.
Any apprehension ahead of tonight?
No, I think it'll run smooth. I think we'll just run as normal, and I think it'll be a good night.
What's the last 18 months been like for you guys?
Well, it's been a long 18 months. This day's been a long time waiting, and we're just happy that it's came now.
Oh, absolutely. And in that moment, when you open those doors and you get people back on the dance floor, how are you going to be feeling?
I'll be feeling great. I'll be feeling great that we're back at work and ready to go, just working as normal.
Thanks, Johnny. Thank you. Obviously, big night ahead for the industry. Now, I'm not going to showcase my terrible dance moves just yet, but give it a few hours and you never know. But I'm sure there's lots of people who are going to be eager to get out tonight and get back on the dance floor.
I am sure of it, Caroline. I can't wait to see your dance moves either. Now, in other COVID news, a third of 16 and 17-year-olds have had their first dose of the coronavirus vaccine. It comes as health bosses in Jersey are encouraging those heading back to university to get their jab and reminding islanders that appointments are not needed at the vaccination centre at Fort Regent. And potential plans to create a university in Guernsey have been scrapped. The Committee for Economic Development had put forward the idea, but now say it would require too much investment, creating a significant bill for taxpayers. Now it's coming up to 6:20. The ITV Evening News is after us. Here's Lucrezia with the national headlines for you.
The latest on the explosions outside Kabul airport. It happened as thousands are still trying to get out of Afghanistan and followed a warning from Britain and America of an imminent terror threat. We'll have reaction from Washington and Downing Street. Also, the Education Secretary tells us he won't rule out giving the COVID vaccine to children as young as 12. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Thanks, Lucrezia, but first back here. It might be Freedom Day in Jersey, but it's also Thursday, which means it's time for this week's instalment of Fun in the Sun. There is less sun out there than we'd like at the moment, but one event that is guaranteed to make you smile is Guernsey's Battle of Flowers. Jersey's parade hasn't been able to go ahead, unfortunately, but that wasn't going to stop Islanders in Guernsey from having a good time. We sent Catherine Levy along for a look.
Here we are at Guernsey's North Show. It's day number 2 and just minutes before the Battle of Flowers gets underway. Joining me now is Hayley LePage, and she is one of the entrants this year. Tell me a little bit about Spitfire.
Well, we built this 2 years ago for the Liberation anniversary, but unfortunately the show didn't happen last year, so we kept it and then flowered it at the beginning of this year in the hope that it would go ahead, and luckily it has. We've added a few bits as well, so the flowers on the base were originally just red, but they've now all been turned into poppies, so there's over 1,000 poppies on the float now.
And how long has all this taken you?
The building part, well, that was up to my dad, and he built that all a couple of years ago, and then the flowering itself we've started doing around May time.
Hayley, tell me just how important it was to take part, particularly after missing last year.
It's been important for us to take part because we like to do it every year, and we were ready for last year, so if it's on, we'll do it.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Now let's take a look at the parade in action. So back behind the scenes again, and joining me now is Rosalind Jackson, who together with the May family have helped to create this incredible funfair wheel. Rosalind, could you just tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea and what sort of work was involved?
A lot of work, because each piece is all made of wood, so each piece had to be crafted, and so it took my husband quite a while to make that, but my granddaughters wanted to do it. They're under 10, so it's what they wanted to do, that's why we've done it.
Listen, it's absolutely beautiful. Wishing you all the best in the competition, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
And we'll take another look now at some of the spectacular floats taking part in the parade.
Ah, we have missed those pictures. Good to see it back. Thanks for that, Catherine. And we will have a weather forecast for you in just a moment to see if the weekend will offer any sun to have fun in. But first, let's return to our main story, Jersey's Freedom Day. And let's go back to Clare at the Weybridge for a final thought. And Clare, I suppose a lot of sacrifices have been made for this freedom.
Yes, today is being badged as Freedom Day, but seeing those pictures from Guernsey and hearing people have such a great fun at the North Show does remind you that Jersey's missed out on a lot this summer because of the lifting of restrictions being pushed back and back. Jersey's Battle of Flowers cancelled, Jersey's Pride event online only, the Weekender Festival, the Wonky Town Festival, both cancelled. Now, as we heard in your interview earlier, politicians haven't always agreed on the best way forward out of this. And we've commented throughout this pandemic, haven't we, the different approaches that Jersey and Guernsey's government have taken to this evolving public health challenge. I think what we believe authorities will agree on is that we aren't out of the woods yet particularly. We know that winter is coming when respiratory viruses do tend to thrive. We know children are going back to school soon, most of them unvaccinated, so there's lots of unknowns in the mix. But today is about celebrating those small steps towards freedom and normality. People here seem to be enjoying those freedoms and may end up in nightclubs later, who knows. What Freedom Day means is the ability to be spontaneous again, not having to book a table wherever you go. And that's, I think, what people have really, really missed. So if you are going out dancing anywhere in the Channel Islands tonight, have a great time, have a boogie for Jess and I. We'll leave you now with some pictures from Jersey's journey to freedom.
Making the most of the day. ITV Channel Islands weather. Sponsored by Shaw. Mobile, broadband and home phone.
Hello there. Well, it certainly has been a fairly quiet day weather-wise, a little on the cloudy side to start with, but brighter spells have been coming through and that bodes well for the next few days. Lots of dry weather in the forecast over the coming days, plenty of sunshine as well, although it will be a little on the breezy side. So this is the setup. High pressure sitting up towards the north there. That's really where it will stay through the next few days, not moving very far at all, but where it's sat means that we will continue to bring in a feed of air from the northeast, and that northeasterly breeze will take the edge off some otherwise fairly decent temperatures. Still out there at the moment, the late sunshine is now giving way to a little patchy cloud, and we'll continue to see some cloud milling around through the course of the night. But some lengthy clear spells too, and temperatures under those clearer skies dipping down to around 12 or 13 Celsius, so just a degree or two fresher than last night. Tomorrow morning then, I think arguably a much brighter start than we had this morning. Lots of sunny spells around from the word go, more of the same as we head into the afternoon. Staying dry, plenty of sunshine to be found, but that northeasterly breeze just keeping the temperatures down, so highs tomorrow probably just 18 or 19 Celsius at best. But don't let the cooler feel fool you. UV levels in the sunshine will actually be pretty high. Looking ahead at the high tides for tomorrow, then it's even hellier there, 12 minutes past 10 in the morning, getting on for 10:30 in the evening. And then looking ahead to the next few days, all very promising, as we saw on the earlier pressure sequence. High pressure very much in charge, so lots of dry weather on the cards, not just through the bank holiday weekend but beyond. Plenty of sunshine coming through and just that northeasterly breeze making it feel a little fresh.
ITV Channel Islands weather. Sponsored by Shaw.